Was ihr, liebe Leute, herzlich willkommen zum weiteren Video hier auf dem Kanal, auf dem besten Reaction-Kanal von Warzone Deutschlands. Oder generell Warzone. Man möchte ja nicht übertreiben. Liebe Leute, herzlich willkommen. Ich freue mich, dass ihr eingeschaltet habt. Es ist Montagmorgen und wir reagieren jetzt auf ein schön knackiges Video. Ein Oldschool-Video von diesem Kanal, der wirklich einfach Banger-Videos raushaut. Da muss ich ja wirklich sagen, also generell an die ganzen Leute ist immer verlinkt, ne? Die Leute natürlich, auf dessen Videos ich reagiere, aber das ist wirklich ein sehr, sehr geiler YouTube-Kanal, macht sehr coole Videos, habe ich auch schon drauf reagiert. Mehrere verschiedene Sachen und der hat ein Video hochgeladen, The Entire History of Forgotten Guns in Warzone. Die Geschichte von 2020 bis 2023 von Waffen, die vergessen worden sind. Und ich sehe da direkt in der Mitte die Nagelpistole. Und ich muss darauf reagieren, weil ich weiß, die Nailgun, zu der Zeit habe ich damals angefangen, Warzone-Videos zu machen. Und die Nailgun, die hatte, wie viel Schuss hatte die? 15 oder 20? Die war insane. Die hat so viel Spaß gemacht. Das war richtig geil. Deswegen ein bisschen Oldschool-Reaction hier auf Oldschool-Gameplay. Lasst gerne ein kostenloses Abo da. Eine positive Wertung wäre geil, wenn wir hier 300 Likes hätten. Und wenn ihr Bock habt auf weitere Videos und nichts zu verpassen, macht gerne die Glocke an. Wir gehen rein.
Cycle over 5 different games, and Warzone has stretched its life cycle over 5 different games, and with that we've seen over 200 different.
Ich bin so gespannt und also guck mal, ganz kurz, wir müssen es einmal zusammenfassen, ne, weil wir haben Modern Warfare gehabt, Cold War, Vanguard, 3 Spiele. Alle Waffen waren in Warzone vertreten. Wir haben MW2, wir haben MW3 und ich bin wirklich gespannt, ob Gulf War jetzt auch wieder so ist, dass wir dann 3 Waffen im Game haben. Ich weiß nicht, wie es euch geht. Gerne mal Bezug nehmen. Aber ich fänd's scheiße. Ich fänd's wirklich affig, wenn jetzt wieder das neue Call of Duty reinbringen und wir wieder dann auf einmal 70, 80, 90 verschiedene Waffen in Warzone hätten. Ich fänd's nicht geil.
I guarantee there are a handful you don't remember or even use. Today I wanted to share with you the entire history of forgotten guns in Warzone. These are the guns that you may not believe were ever in the game. Maybe they were so bad you never touched them. Or perhaps gimmicky beyond belief in a desperate attempt to get the player's attention. Some were actually pretty useful, but just not necessarily at the forefront of the meta. Comment which of these you want to make a return to Warzone.
Crossbow, okay. Aber den Crossbow kenne ich noch.
Remember this one, and technically we still have a crossbow in Warzone today since we had a crossbow introduced in Warzone 2, but to this day no one uses it because it's nothing like the Warzone 1 crossbow. It even seems like the Warzone Win Challenge YouTubers seem to steer clear from the crossbow today. That's how irrelevant it is. But let's go back to Warzone 1 where it was first introduced. There were a ton of different tips you could put on it, which made it a lot of fun.
Nein, aber der war kacke. Also da lass ich nicht mit mir reden. Also der Crossbow, ich weiß, Georg, also aka Gustav Gabel, der hat mal ein Video dazu gemacht, aber es war eine Vollkatastrophe, der Longbow. Ich bin wirklich gespannt, ob ich ein paar Waffen vergessen habe.
You had the gas tip, which was definitely the worst of the bunch. Just left a little gas trail after the fact, dealing very little residual damage, but kind of like covering a small area. This was objectively the worst one. I don't know why you would ever use this one. Then there was the thermite, which essentially just shot thermite grenades at your opponent, and the thermite would stick around for a decent amount of time, which was honestly really annoying. But most notably, you had the explosive tip, which was hands down the best attachment for the crossbow. The longest period of time, you could one-shot anyone, no matter what the range was, or where you hit them, or whatever armor they had.
Ja, man konnte jemanden one-shot, aber es war, ich finde, die Leute tun immer so, als ob das so einfach gewesen wäre, die Leute zu one-shotten, auf keinen Fall.
The crossbow would always break armor once you hit them, so since their armor was gone, the explosive bolt would just finish them off, which actually made this a lot of fun to use. The best part about this is if they were remotely injured and you hit a headshot, they would immediately go down from the bolt itself, but then the explosion would finish them off when they were down, giving them no chance at being revived. If I'm not mistaken, this is the only way you could truly take someone from up and alive to spectating with a single shot of any gun. It was honestly so much fun running around like Norman Reedus just catching body after body. We later got the R1 Shadow Hunter, which was the Cold War crossbow, which honestly couldn't even hold a candle to the Warzone 1 crossbow. Didn't really customize the bolt whatsoever, and it focused more so on raw damage, so not near as fun in my opinion. I think they just wanted to include a crossbow in the Cold War, and so since it was Cold War, it was also available in Warzone, but really not viable whatsoever. Later we would get the Warzone 2 crossbow, which I already mentioned, and for a while it actually did one-shot any player. However, in like Season 3 or Season 4, I think, every player...
Wie sehr vermissen wir Warzone 2 nicht? Schon sehr, ne? Wenn ich das Gameplay schon wieder sehe, mir tut alles weh. Mir tut doch wirklich alles
a
weh.
50 HP buff. When they made that change to Warzone, they didn't change the crossbow's damage whatsoever. I'm not sure if that's something they meant to do or if they're just trying to get rid of crossbows entirely in the meta. Which, mind you, they've never been meta. They've just been very niche and somewhat useful. I don't understand why they made this change because the velocity is truly so unbearable. So even if they did buff it back to one-shotting, I don't think a lot of people would use it still. I think if they did make it one-shot and maybe add it to ground loot, it'd be a fun little thing to have, you know, get you out of certain situations and whatnot. But obviously, you would never run it in your loadout. Bring back Warzone 1 crossbow.
Okay. Alright, okay. Minigun als nächstes. Modern Warfare Season 4. Habe ich, glaube ich, auch nie gespielt.
The first time you could get the minigun was through the extremely tedious Bunker 11.
Das ist nach wie vor mein allerliebstes Easter Egg. Gerne mal in die Kommentare schreiben, wie es bei euch ist. Das Bunker Mini Easter Egg, das war so geil. Es hat so Spaß gemacht. Das war auch mein erster Mini-Durchbruch auf meinem ganz, ganz jungen YouTube-Kanal noch. Ich habe damals dann, ich weiß noch im Stream, wir haben so Meta gemacht, Alter. Ich muss mal ganz kurz hier auf Älteste gehen. Das war mein erstes kleines Video, was mehr Aufmerksamkeit bekommen hat. Und zwar hier, die geheime Brühen MK9 Easter Egg Variante Hitzkopf. Das hatte damals unverhältnismäßig mehr Aufrufe, wo ich den Easter Egg Guide gemacht habe. Guck mal, Klein Dinkel, der Bubi. Ohne Bart, stinksauer, hohe Stimme auch noch. So schwierig, mal eine Season zu starten, ohne irgendwelche... Richtig geil, ich liebe, denke ich immer wieder gerne zurück an dieses Easter Egg. Okay.
An Easter egg in Warzone 1, which I'm gonna go on a limb here and say a lot of you didn't do that. Those kind of things are just a little bit too much for me. The next time it was readily available was just a month later when they added the Juggernaut Royale limited time mode. If you remember this game mode, there would be a handful of loadout drop like crates dropped into the map for any team to secure, and if you did, you not only got Juggernaut armor, but a minigun to go along with it. I'm gonna go ahead and focus on the gun itself rather than the...
Einfach, das vergessen auch viele. Es gab, überleg mal bitte ganz kurz. Kurz festhalten, anschneiden, es gab ein Juggernaut-Event in Battle Royale. In Battle Royale gab es ein Juggernaut-Event. Ich habe extra den Satz nochmal umgebaut, damit man es direkt versteht. Das ist unglaublich. Dann ist einfach irgendwo auf der Map mein Juggernaut gedroppt und das Team, das den Juggernaut dann hatte, hat natürlich die Runde gewonnen.
Armor that went along with it, since this is a guns list. Technically, you didn't have to have the armor because if you killed the Juggernaut, they would drop the minigun and anyone could pick it up afterwards. Once this mode was no more, they added the chance to get miniguns from bunkers along with Juggernaut armor as well. The gun was actually pretty good and had way more range than you would think for a minigun. It was kind of like the grenade launcher in a way, where when you saw it, you immediately fought an internal battle with yourself whether you should pick it up or not, just because of how rare it was. It was super slow, which the way Warzone is played today, focusing more on movement and mobility, doesn't really fare as well. But at the time, it was pretty dang good. And ever since then, there have been a handful more ways to get the minigun, most notably in the Black Site in Warzone 2. Since every Black Site is guarded by a Juggernaut, once you defeat the Juggernaut...
Wie krank ist es, wie egal mittlerweile Black Sites einfach sind. Die spielen einfach gar keine Rolle mehr in unserem Leben. W oder L-Chat? Ich sag W, glaube ich. Obwohl es schon nice war, immer eine safe Advance zu bekommen.
Drops the minigun for anyone to pick up. Then in Warzone 3, yes, you can get the minigun in the same exact way, but since black sites and strongholds don't spawn in each game, I'd even go as far to say they rarely spawn in, the minigun is not near as common as it once was. I've only gotten the minigun in Warzone 3 once, and it was during the Sleigh Ride Resurgence mode after I murdered Santa Claus, and honestly, it wasn't doing it for me. I only used it once, so the minigun in Warzone today, my opinion really doesn't matter because I haven't really experimented with it too much, but I do wish there was a guaranteed way to get the minigun in Warzone 3 today. Sort of like the ray gun on Fortune's Keep, because now it's a much more rare gun.
Stimmt, man konnte auch damals, ja, man konnte damals sogar mit dem Juggernaut auf Gegner draufspringen und die waren sofort tot. Also, man muss doch wirklich dazu sagen, Warzone hat schon echt einige Aids rausgeknallt. Das ist schon geistkrank, überleg mal. Einfach auch im Battle Royale, stell dir mal vor, du bist jetzt so auf Winstreak, 5er Winstreak aus der Kalten und dann kommt so ein Juggernaut-Event, wo dann 4 Juggernauts auf der Map sind.
Gun to find today, hence why I think a lot of people have forgotten about it. It was nice that in any given Battle Royale match on Al-Mazrah, you could get the minigun if you really wanted to grind for it.
Rytek, nie gespielt.
I had completely forgotten about this gun until I was making my entire history.
Die habe ich wirklich auch vergessen. Rytek nie gespielt in meinem Leben.
History of sniping video. This gun was seriously so wild, and I would love another gun like this to make a return to Warzone. For starters, it was semi-automatic and when one shot to the head at any range, which is something we haven't seen since Warzone 1. It would also two-shot body shot at a considerable range, which
Bro, ich weiß noch, als sie dann als sie beliebt wurde und die Leute angefangen haben, die Helis damit abzuschießen. Wir sind mit dem Heli geflogen, 2 oder 3 Shots mit der Rytek haben gereicht, der Heli ist explodiert, alle waren tot.
which, similar to the crossbow, would essentially shoot incendiary-like rounds at your opponent, but they lingered way longer. You could down someone with a headshot, and the thermite would then kick in after the fact, which would leave them with only 2/3 their health while being down, which was a really cool feature. Kind of similar to how the crossbow would finish someone off and down them with the bolt itself, but not quite as good. But where the Rytec really shines is its explosive ammo, which was something we haven't seen in Warzone since. Not to be confused with the explosive ammo we have today, which is pretty much only good for making any bolt-action sniper one-shot at any range. Explosive ammo for the Rytec would actually leave an explosion behind after impact. This was crazy because you could shoot near or around someone and still deal damage to them from a super far range. The only drawback with these ammo types was that its velocity and bullet drop fell dramatically, and with the Rytec already not having the greatest velocity, it wasn't exactly a cakewalk to use. What I think they really had in mind for this ammo type was destroying...
Guck, genau das meine ich. 3 Kugeln, das Fahrzeug ist einfach explodiert, alle tot.
Vehicles, which was absolutely crazy. It pretty much one-shot any vehicle aside from the Berthas. Being able to snipe a helicopter from a distance, but instead of having to shoot the pilot out, you're destroying the
Also so schnell kannst du gar nicht reagieren, das ist so ein Quatsch. Quatsch.
Entire thing was pretty crazy and something you just can't do anymore. It was almost like having a hit scan RPG. Eventually, they nerfed the Rytec to not be able to one-shot headshot at all, which was kind of sad since it really wasn't easy to use in the first place. I, for one, didn't find the Rytec, even with the ammo types broken, simply because it just wasn't all that viable. But still, just a fun gun to use in general.
Gott, die ADS wäre... Da, guck mal auf die Minimap. Einfach ein Juggernaut im Battle Royale. Digga, ist geil. Okay, aber der Typ hier hat 0 Kills. Was hat der die ganze Runde gemacht? Frage ich mich an dieser Stelle.
If anything needed to be nerfed, it was its vehicle damage. That's the only change I would make going back.
Na egal, das meins. By the way, an alle, ich nehme gerade YouTube-Video auf. Deswegen bedanke ich gleich mit den Subs.
The fun thing about the nail gun was that it was actually really good. At the fastest time to kill in the game aside from any one-shot sniper. It only took 4 shots with this thing to kill someone, which was just crazy.
Nailgun habe ich richtig gefeiert. Muss aber dazu sagen, wenn ich mir jetzt die Renette hier angucke, dann habe ich die Nailgun vielleicht doch ein bisschen overhyped, weil ich glaube, die war wirklich ähnlich stark wie die Renette und das ist ja wirklich einfach nur Kacke.
The major drawback was that it didn't support any attachments whatsoever, so what you had was what you got. With only 20 rounds in its magazine, it was extremely difficult to get more than 1 to 2 kills per magazine. Go on some of the craziest iron sights of all time, and you had the definition of a high-risk, high-reward gun. This gun was dominating Rebirth Island for the longest time. It was eventually hit with some damage nerfs, but that was pretty much it. I think that's the perfect nerf because I think it's still used to down someone with 4 shots just about any range, but nerfing that made it still fairly balanced. Since you had no customization and
ja, stimmt. Ne, du hattest 20 Schuss, hattest keine Aufsätze. Fand ich eigentlich auch nicht schlecht. War eigentlich balanced, oder? Also war zwar zu stark, wurde dann ja auch genervt, aber war okay. Ich habe sie sehr gerne gespielt, weil du hast auch geiles Movement damit. Heutzutage kommt eine Renette um die Ecke mit einem Umbau-Kit. Du hast zwar schlechtes Movement, aber du hast 50 Schuss bei einer 330er TTK. Lächerlich.
In just the 20-round magazine, it was still way better to run a traditional kitted-out SMG, especially if you were playing trios or quads. However, if you were feeling slimy and tricky, you could definitely still make the nail gun work in certain circumstances. It's always fun to see a gimmicky gun added to the game, be broken for a while, then get nerfed to a balanced state, and still be usable somehow.
X1? X1, war das nicht... Was war denn nochmal die X1? Ich glaube, das war dieser... War das Strom oder so? Oder so eine Waffe, die sich aufgeladen hat? Ich weiß, ich habe eine Waffe vor den Augen.
Alright, well, if you thought the nail gun was gimmicky, buckle up for this next edition.
Doch, ich erinnere mich dran.
This one was a laser gun that was originally in Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. Well, for whatever reason, they decided to add this gun to Call of Duty Vanguard of all games. For the sake of continuity, I think...
Die war unfassbar scheiße im Battle Royale, meine ich.
They could have at least added it to Modern Warfare 2019 so you could easily write it off as like a prototype gun from the future or something. But for some reason, Raven thought the high-tech laser gun used against spaceships and zombies was a better fit for a World War II setting. The gun itself really wasn't anything special or really all that good whatsoever. I will say the customization was pretty crazy, and since it was technically a Vanguard gun, it allowed for 10 attachments.
Du fragst dich manchmal auch, was die da machen, ne? Fragst wirklich, was machen die da? Was machen die da? Was machen die da? Einfach eine Laserwaffe in Vanguard.
So I guess that was pretty fun. You could kit it out to be a sniper, which I totally forgot about before making this video, and had I known that, I definitely would have included it in my History of Excitement video because it actually was a true one-shot sniper.
Ja,
yes,
aber die war
that's
kacke.
Right, the only assault rifle in Warzone history to be a one-shot headshot.
Die war
It
kacke.
used this weird, like, charge-up shot magazine.
Ja, Metaphor, genau das Gameplay habe ich damals auch gesehen. Ich schwöre, ich habe mir das Video von Metaphor angeschaut, über die Waffe, um zu gucken, ob ich selber ein Video dazu mache, ob die sich lohnt, ob die stark ist. Genau das Video habe ich auch gesehen. Genau das hatte ich gerade vor Augen. Und Metaphor so, als er den Kill gemacht hat. What? Oh my God, I am so good. Entschuldigung, wie Metaphor so halt reagiert manchmal. Aber, die war scheiße.
Which would result in the one-shot headshot from any range. Were there better snipers at the time? Absolutely, but having this as another somewhat decent sniper option in Warzone is just hilarious. As far as usefulness outside of the sniper, I really didn't see a point in using it. At range, its recoil was awful, but another really weird thing about this gun that I couldn't get over was that it left the laser trails when you were shooting someone, and that made it really difficult for tracking somebody, in my opinion. I don't know, I could never get over that. It kind of like just like took up the whole entire screen. It's also worth mentioning there was a 3-round burst variant with one of the magazines as well. This was also pretty useless. Overall, the gun was not worth using in my opinion. This was also added to the game during Season 5 of Vanguard, which was just before the release of Modern Warfare 2.
Was ein Scheiß, oder? Ach,
and I personally saw it as a desperate attempt to get people to play Vanguard before its inevitable demise.
M16. Forgotten?
I bet a lot of you completely forgot that there was even an M16 alongside the launch of Modern Warfare 2. It's one of the only guns in Warzone today that goes by its actual name in real life, which is a shame because the reason I say you probably forgot about this gun is that it's probably the worst assault rifle.
Stimmt, weil M16 war, weil die M16, die jeder gespielt hat mit der AUG war, die war ja eine Cold War Waffe und keine MW. MW hatte eine M16? Lol.
In Warzone right now and honestly has been since the launch of Warzone 2. Also, I don't
Können wir mal ganz kurz über den Recoil sprechen?
Worst assault rifle in Warzone right now, and honestly has been since the launch of Warzone 2. Also, I don't think this gun has ever been in the ground loot rotation, so that certainly isn't helping anyone remembering it either. The M16 is such a quintessential gun for not only video games, but specifically for COD in general. It has usually been in the forefront of the meta in previous games, and even the Cold War M16 had a severe broken state during the burst meta. The whole burst thing, they just can never get right. It's either super broken or just useless. I mean, even when I would grind multiplayer, the Modern Warfare 2 M16 never saw any viability. I swear I still don't have this gun leveled up because of how useless it is. There's just a lot of things they could do to fix this, you know? They could make the recoil crazy and the damage insane, or lower the recoil and give it some moderate damage. But seriously, right now, it might take 6 bursts to down a fully plated enemy. Please do something about the burst guns.
GS Magma. Letztes Jahr. Season 3. GS Manga. GS Manga. Ich find's voll... Also, der Name sagt mir gerade gar nichts. GS Manga. Ich hab überhaupt keine Ahnung. Das ist letztes Jahr. Das ist ja gerade mal ein Jahr her.
So the manga, whatever, was added about halfway through Modern Warfare 2's life cycle, and it's a gun that I don't think anybody was asking for. The Deagle has always been a universally hated
Eine Deagle-Variante?
gun in Warzone, not Call of Duty, but specifically Warzone. It's a high recoil, high damage gun. If you hit 2 headshots, you're gonna down them, but other than that, it's really bad. I think everyone can agree this is the worst starting pistol in Warzone. But what if I told you there's a Deagle that's fully automatic? That would be the GS Manga. It's pretty much the same gun, only more recoil, less damage, and a higher rate of fire, and that's about it. There's really no place for this gun in Warzone right now.
Bro, nie gehört davon. Noch nie in meinem Leben von dieser Variante oder von dieser Deagle gehört. Noch nie.
Now, nor has there really ever been. Could maybe argue that it's good for underwater combat in the final circle on Vondel, but other than that, there is absolutely no reason to be using this gun. Similar to the M16, I don't think this gun has ever been in the ground loot rotation.
Lachmann Short, an die erinnere ich
mich. This is
mich.
another one that you might remember just because of how recently it was added to the game. Lachmann Shroud is a burst MP5 SMG that was added in Season 5 Reloaded.
Also bitte. Ich weiß noch, als die rausgekommen ist. Eine Burst MP5. Wie geil und wie sehr haben wir es alle immer gefeiert, wenn die auf dem Boden lag. Du siehst eine Lachmann MP5, denkst dir, geiler Early Loot, du kannst jetzt hier auf Fortune Skip deine 50 Kills machen, dann ist es eine Burst MP5.
Modern Warfare 2, which to me just felt way out of place. We just talked about how trash burst guns are, but this is the last time we've ever seen any burst gun do a decent job in Warzone.
Nein,
I think it's weird that we've had the Modern Warfare MP5, the Cold War MP5, the Lachmann Sub, aka the Modern Warfare 2 MP5. Then in the same game, they decided to add pretty much the same exact gun, but just a 3-round burst variant. To me, it just screamed redundancy, and just like the EX1, this was added to Warzone 2 just before Warzone 3, which I think was yet another desperate attempt to get people to play Modern Warfare 2 before it would die. Kind of like trying to get people in the nostalgia feels like, oh, the MP5 is back in Warzone, but really it wasn't. However, the gun
Average Metaphor Lobby. Können wir da nochmal kurz drüber reden? Mir wird immer VPN vorgeworfen. Schaut euch mal bitte Metaphor an. Der hat eine 6er KD, 100.000 Kills oder so. Das ist seine Lobby gewesen.
X1. This was added to Warzone 2 just before Warzone 3, which I think was yet another desperate attempt to get people to play Modern Warfare 2 before it would die. Kind of like trying to
Aber
get
ich muss mir was anhören. Weißt du, was ich meine?
The nostalgia feels like, oh, the MP5 is back in Warzone. But really, it wasn't. However, the gun was actually pretty solid for the remainder of Warzone 2, but ever since the Modern Warfare 3 integration, it's become trash alongside all the other Modern Warfare 2 guns. Another reason you may have remembered this gun, aside from it being added to the game recently, is that it was in the ground loot rotation throughout all of Season 1 of Warzone 3.
Die war die ganze Zeit auf dem Boden, ich war so
I thought
sauer.
it was one of the worst guns you could pick up. For some reason, it only had a gold variant, and this is a gun I would avoid at all costs. But that's the entire history of Forgotten Guns in Warzone. If you're still watching this video, you must have liked this video at least a little bit.
97% haben nicht abonniert. Was? Ach du Scheiße. Aber das habe ich mir schon gedacht, weil guck mal, der hat gerade mal 6000 Abonnenten und die Videos machen so viele Klicks. Also da, oh mein Gott. Das habe ich noch nie gesehen. 97% haben nicht abonniert. Das ist geisteskrank. Ganz krank. Aber das Video war auf jeden Fall nice. Lasst ein positive Wertung, kostet ein Abo da. Videos wie immer in der Videobeschreibung verlinkt. Und wir sehen uns beim nächsten Mal, wenn es wieder heißt: kostenlos abonnieren, positive Wertung erlassen und die Glocke aktivieren. Wir sehen uns, macht's gut. Kommt gerne im Stream vorbei, erster Link in der Videobeschreibung. Rüssel.